Hi, and welcome to LVB Presents. I'm Steph Thompson, founder of the London Voice Boutique, and we're a voiceover agency based in Soho, London. And we're going to take you on a little journey behind the scenes with some of our actors so that you can get a taste of what goes on in this world. Think funny stories, advice, and some useful insight on how to navigate this industry. Today, I'm happy to welcome Harriet Carmichael, actress, illustrator, and the first voiceover artist I ever signed when I set up LVB.
Thank you.
And Allan Johnston, animation producer at Jungle Creative and ex-BBC BAFTA award-winning children's TV producer and creator of Mr. Tumble and Something Special. Yay!
Cheer louder.
Well, we've all got something to thank you for. Right, hi Harriet, hi Allan.
Hi,
how are you doing?
Good.
So today I thought we could talk about animation a little bit because obviously that's what you both have in common. And Harriet, you do an awful lot of animation these days, and Allan, you're doing a lot of animation programs.
We do it together.
We
sometimes.
do, yeah,
sometimes.
Together.
So I wanted to start with Harriet. I wanted to find out a bit about how you prepare for a voiceover session, and do you have any rituals?
Well, it's different for depending on what the voiceover is, but generally, if it's animation, I need to get the adrenaline and become energetic and get my juices flowing. So I listen to musical theatre.
Do you?
Do you? On Spotify.
How does that make it?
Yeah, because I listen to Legally Blonde.
Oh, do you?
Genuinely.
What, the music from that?
Yeah,
and
I
it just
listen to,
gets
like,
you
bend and snap or something high energy. Well, obviously, because when you're listening to, energetic music, your adrenaline starts pumping, puts you in a good mood, and then you go in with the, with all that positivity. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I listen to 90s club dance tracks, but obviously, clearly we're very different. So that's like your ritual.
So if I'm going into something high energy, and obviously I have had a coffee, but but then I'll go into the session and ask for a green tea.
and pretend you're healthy.
Right,
oh yes, darling,
no.
my body's a temple. I can't.
Alan, can I have a green tea?
I've just had 3 flat whites.
I don't sound clacky at all.
Yeah, that's the problem. I keep saying to my artists, don't have a milky drink beforehand, but Harriet, I know you do have a milky drink beforehand. How do you get away with it?
Well, I have had it in the past. Some producers have said, "Did you have coffee this morning?" And you go, no, I only have water when I wake up. So I am quite careful. Like, if I know the producer or the engineer really well, I'll take a coffee in. But otherwise, I will genuinely ask for a green tea.
Really? I love that. Allan?
Yes.
Obviously, you do a lot of casting for animation programmes. What do you look for when you're casting an animation voiceover?
The first thing, really, I suppose, is the tonal quality of the voice. Does it match the character and so on? And what's really helpful then is to listen to sort of reels.
Yes.
In order to get a good indicator of that voice.
Oh, okay, so this is one of my questions. I get asked a lot. A lot of actors think that they need an animation reel, a character's reel. I don't think they're necessary. I think that actually it's usually about the tone of the voice, that I seem to get auditions from casting directors for animations, and it's like, here's the tone, this is what we're after. Then you have to do a little test or an audition anyway. Or do you think it is useful having an animation reel on a voiceovers page or not?
I don't think it can hurt.
Okay.
Because actually what you can get from that, because an animated voice is often different to the voice that would ordinarily exist on the show reel, in terms of, if it's for an advert, and so we want something that's often larger than life.
Yeah.
And a show reel, an animation show reel, will give me that whether the artist has got that ability to actually punch a little bit.
Yeah,
sort of.
I agree, because I don't think your animation reel doesn't have to show that they're not going to be looking for the voice of that character, but they are probably going to be looking to see whether you can change your voice.
Okay, so I think if it shows versatility.
Yeah.
Yes.
That can be really useful.
Versatility is a really good word.
I just think sometimes when I get these reels in and they want to do like, here's a cheeky monkey and then here's a da-da-da, I find those quite irritating to listen to.
Yeah, so do I.
And so I think that's when I'm a bit cautious about doing.
my cheeky monkey.
yeah, take that one off. Yeah.
It's quite difficult.
The
because
serene badgers, very good.
Thanks, Ellen. We've worked hard on that.
I think it's really interesting. So I think what I have advised previously is like get an advert, like a Nickelodeon advert, a radio one, where you're all the voices, and in fact that's what Joe Attwell did on ours, and he does loads of different character voices within a commercial, and that worked really well for him. That's how actually he got cast.
And that will give you the versatility.
Exactly, rather than
Yeah.
here's my cheeky monkey, here's a horse that can do this, and here's a seal that can.
yeah.
I think that for me. That is better, personally. Would you agree?
I would, because the actual voice that you're looking for isn't going to exist on the show reel.
Exactly.
You know, but the versatility is what you need.
And don't you think it's changed as well nowadays when you get briefs for cartoons? More and more they want your authentic voice.
I agree.
So actually, and they'll also say we don't want a cartoon style. We want it to sound really natural.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
but I think obviously versatility is great because the director might want your voice, but a bit breathier or a bit more direct or something.
Yeah, and I think authenticity is really, really important. And personally, I would never employ, if it was a Scottish character, I would never employ someone doing a Scottish accent. In terms of
unless they're Scottish.
I was going to say
don't confusing. Really, really badly. It has to be an authentic.
Their surname was Carmichael.
Is that Scottish?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Are you from Scotland?
Scottish great grandparents.
I'd have to think about that. Don't put me on the spot. I would consider. that. There's nothing worse than if you're from that regional area. And if I hear, because I'm originally from Liverpool, if I hear someone trying to do a Scouse accent, and they always go milk and chicken, I'm thinking, oh, for God's sake, people from Liverpool don't actually. They go into the sort of, what was his name? Harry Enfield.
Yeah.
Is it Harry Enfield?
I don't know.
What
was it? The one that, calm down.
Oh, calm down.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's awful.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that's the trouble, isn't it? You've always got to be slightly aware of who your producer is. There's nothing worse than doing a voice and then realising that the client is from the area that you're doing the accent of.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're never going to be as authentic as them.
I think that has become more and more over the last few years. We've definitely found that clients are asking for authentic accents. Yeah. And so we try and find people that, in fact, into the bios, we're now actually trying to write where people are actually from. So it looks, you know, that is information that is useful to share. But I think the other thing I was going to say, which comes up a lot, and I don't know how you feel about it, but when people do these reels and they do it as a voice answering machine, that's my pet peeve.
Oh, what does that mean?
It means it's like leave a message after the tone, and then it goes
do loads of different voices.
And Harry, I'm not sure you may have done these in the past.
I bet I definitely did.
But I have to be
That's
honest.
a really good idea.
I think
It's a really good
the
idea.
most irritating because it's been done
It's
to
been
death.
done so many times.
So you have to. So I say to anyone who's thinking of doing an accents reel or a characters reel, put them in a different situation. I tend to say, you know, do Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, you're a bunch of different people sitting in a room, or just make it a totally different thing, but actually putting sound effects on top of your voices to do a voiceover
that does
reel.
seem quite old-fashioned now, doesn't it? Because,
and I think it's dated.
Yeah, back in the day, that's what you went and you did your animation reel somewhere.
It was
and they
super popular.
Put it in a scenario, but actually people don't have time to.
Well, you don't listen to that much,
no.
Which is why I kind of try and do like a Nickelodeon type of commercial, because then you've got an opportunity to do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But I do have a pet peeve. If anyone sends me in a voice,
I'll make a note.
Yeah, don't send me in a reel that sounds like
all
it's
that advice I've been giving people.
Yes, exactly.
delete. This is why I'm doing.
to get the job then.
This is why I'm doing this podcast, so I can say my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Don't send me.
No, but that's good. I mean, that's the
An
thing.
answer
It's
phone.
cheesy, isn't it, as well? So
It's just dated now,
Yeah.
and I've heard it too many times. But it's the special effects that they then put on top of it. I
Yes.
can't actually hear what you can do.
I know, but
That's
then yeah.
not advisable.
Well, there's a whole conversation about what to do in a reel, isn't there?
Yes.
Basically.
and I might do that
Yes.
another time. Not right now.
But I'd say, principally, whoever's listening is not going to listen for very long. So get as much in as you can in
Exactly.
a very short amount of time.
Exactly. Okay, so this leads me nicely into Harriet. You do a lot of animation voices. How do you come up with different characters each time?
Well, it's a picture is great, but you're not always going to get the picture. So, I mean, if you're lucky and you're doing an animation, the director might say, "Oh, this is what that character looks like," and you can. I think you can get a voice from looking at a picture because you can see if they're chesty or nasally or mean or young obvious things like that, young or old. But quite often there isn't a picture, so
Oh, really?
Often there's nothing. There's just. I mean, that's quite nice when you can start from scratch.
Really open brief.
But I think if you've read about the character or you hear about the character, you get an impression of what sort of characteristics they have physically, which then might translate into voice. I mean, that's really important to think about physically. Are they big, small, mean, generous, laughy, that sort of thing? And then I always quite like to get a reference. So the director or the writer might have had someone in mind and they might say, it's Joanna Lumley-ish or give you a reference. That's very useful. And basically, if they say, I don't know, just give me anything.
Oh, that is really hard.
Well, that's quite fun then. Because
Okay.
you can try a multitude of voices. And obviously it depends, where are they from? Are they British? Are they maybe they're not a human. So it's just sort of trial and error. But I have a bag of voices, like depending on what I've been watching lately or what I've been listening to lately, I'll have voices at the front of my head and I can try lots of different things.
So what is the most unusual character or direction you've been given for a character? Like, tell me something that might have happened.
Well, probably the most unusual character I did was I played a fart in a really brilliant series called Best and BAFTA, Nickelodeon.
Right.
And that was the brief.
love that.
She was a fart.
So how did you come up with a character?
I can't remember, but originally she was a comedian, and they were going, "Oh, think Miss Maisel, think New York, wisecracking." So I was like, "Oh yeah, she's going to talk like this and be like, yeah, and one sort of thing." And then they said, probably because I did that, they said, "Actually,
We've just changed the brief."
No, scrap. No, they said, I can't remember what happened, but she turned into a northern character, and I had obviously been speaking to Sophia, our great friend Sophia, that morning, and so she just became like that, and
I
just
love
did
that.
yeah, the fart became Sophia.
Sophia from LVB is the character. I love that.
But yeah, again, it's sort of trial and error, and the director will. I mean, the worst thing is if you've got the voice in your head. So actually, for that character,
Yeah.
I think she was going to be like this and wisecracking, and then they go, "Oh no, we don't want an American voice." So then you're going, "Oh, shit,
That's all I've got. Serene Badger.
I can't do anything else this morning. It's all I've got in my head."
That is
So,
hard.
well, in that case, you have to think of someone you know to get the voice,
Yeah.
don't you? I think
Yeah.
having someone you know or a character
Yeah.
in mind is so
Yeah.
helpful, because then you just go, "Oh, it's them," and
I
I'll
love
do
that.
that.
Does Sophia know that?
I don't know if I ever told her.
She will do
She will
soon.
now. I love that.
I'm always amazed though by the range of voices that you have. I mean,
very hard,
it's
isn't it?
uncanny when you sort of say, "Can you do an 8-year-old boy?"
Yeah.
And this voice comes from this person, and you think, "What?"
Yeah.
But that's because it's my job, and
Yeah.
I've just been listening to
It's
a
skill.
multitude of voices.
And do you practice when you hear a voice and you
Yeah.
think, "Actually, I really like that voice"?
Yes.
Do you then take it,
I
practice
do.
it, and
It's like, or I'll get you to help me. Do you remember when we did that? We did a test for something for the Nickelodeon.
we've done lots
We've
of
done
tests, haven't we?
And I sort of feel like sometimes you need the help of the director because you gave me a better voice for something.
Right.
So we were doing a multitude of kids, and I'm not as young as I was. But I found a new child voice because you said, "Oh, try her more breathy," or try her low, or I did the really low pitched guy. And because sometimes I forget a lot of voices that I've done. So you need someone to help you untap that voice again.
Do you use your voices when you're out and about? I mean,
Always, Alan.
if I had that skill, I would.
No, of course I don't.
I would, like your first date with someone.
It's so nice to meet you. No, people always say, "Oh, your kids, they must really enjoy you reading stories to them because you do all the voices." I'm
You're like, yeah.
I never do the voices. I'm so tired of talking.
Oh, I bet.
Oh.
No.
No, but
that's
it's
so fun.
yeah, I do practice. If I hear a voice, like, you might hear an amazing voice on the bus or something. Sometimes I find myself walking around, or if I'm listening to a podcast and I hear a good accent that I don't know very well, I'll practice it and I'll be, just walking around going, he said he wanted a cup of tea, or I'll just be sort of going, he said he wanted a cup of tea, or and I'll just be going, and then I realise that people are looking at me going, she's just mumbling to herself.
Do you have little cues to get you into the voice?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So if you're going to do like an Irish accent, you know exactly.
Well, as you can see, I can't do a Northern Irish accent, although I had to do one recently for something, and the lovely voiceover I was working with was really good at it. So he just said the line and I
copied it.
Great win or something like that. But yes, I have cues for characters I know.
Right.
Like I do a lot of, if I do impressions, it always has to come from a catchphrase, basically.
Yeah, because you have to have the skill of, you can come up with character. I've got a lot of people say, "Oh, I read stories to my kids and I love coming up with character voices for them and I want to do an animation reel. I think I'd be great at it." And I think that something that you need to know is that you've got to be able to continue with that voice.
Yes.
It is a skill to know that once you've created that character, if you're doing a series, you go away and you've got to come back in each week or whatever to find that voice again. And it is actually a skill to be able to continue to do that voice.
And remember that voice.
Exactly.
Because I think everyone can do accents, especially when you're chatting with your friends, or you
can for a really short time, but I could not hold a conversation in that accent.
Or when you're suddenly on the spot, you go, "Oh my God, my Northern Irish accent was really good yesterday."
Yeah.
No, it's rubbish.
But you wouldn't want to do a whole animation necessarily in that,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or I did an animation once, and I think I had a sort of like a, I guess it was playing an animal or something. And obviously that is fine, but after a whole episode, so you have to, in that case, you do have to warm up your voice and be careful what you choose.
I know, because you could ruin your voice for then going to do a nice chunky kind of commercial job that's going to pay you 1,000,000 times more because you're doing it for absolutely nothing as an animation voiceover. I wanted to ask you, Alan, actually, what's the most unusual direction you've given in a booth to an actor? Because obviously from the other side, it's quite nice to know, what do you think is one of the most unusual, especially in animation? There must have been some quite.
There was one that leaps to mind when I might have to sort of act this out. When it was someone going down a what do you call them? Roller coaster, and they had to scream "Help!" And the problem was it was just coming out as "Help!" and it wasn't taking into account all the bumps and everything that they were doing. And they tried to do it and they couldn't. So in the end, they were an adult, so it was fine. And I went behind them and I shook their shoulders like that while they were doing it. And so it went from "Help!" it went like that. And then when we'd finished, I looked at the recorders and they just went, "Oh, we'll have to go again on that, Alan," with a wink. And we did it about 4 times. This poor person was being thrown about. But that's probably the strangest, I think. Yeah.
Luckily, it wasn't a child.
No,
Exactly. With like brain
Exactly.
damage.
Yeah.
Won't be doing that again.
That's really helpful, though, isn't it? It genuinely is brilliant when you get a lot of help from your director.
Right.
Because I think sometimes when you, especially with animation, you know, a lot of, you know, direction varies, and some people take a sort of literally hands-on
Hands-on.
approach,
Yeah.
and others don't. And when you don't get a lot of direction and it's all down to you, that's much harder, because you sort of need a buddy to go,
Right.
wait, maybe you should try that, or think about it in this way, or...
That's interesting, because as the director, you don't sometimes want to overstep
Yeah.
your marks.
It's
Yeah.
finding
you
that
know,
balance, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, because you are the professional and it's what you do for a living. But yeah, I'll bear that in mind.
Do!
Alan, could you help actually direct next time? What she's trying to say.
Sitting there on the...
Alan!
Stop doing Wordle. Give me a direction, please.
Come and put your hands up now.
Yeah, shaking.
No, it's I find.
Do you
it
find
very
that some
helpful.
directors are better than others then when directing you? I mean, I guess that's normal,
Not
but like
necessarily better, but
giving you ideas for the character.
I think as well that I think some directors you really connect with, and I think I was telling you earlier about Dave Peacock is a very famous voice director, and he has quite a distinct and famous approach in that he'll just give you a lot of visual clues. And I was trying to think of an example, and recently I was playing a kid, but probably an animal. And I think he was like probably, talking like this and quite cute. And then Dave said, put a baseball cap on him. So I put a baseball cap on him, and, maybe he got him a little bit deeper or something. And then he was like, turn the baseball cap round. And like, just like that,
It's amazing.
it changes the character
That's
completely.
brilliant.
It
I think-
is.
Again,
So Alan,
Baseball
take
cap.
notes. I think that's
will any
brilliant.
cap do? Or does it have to be a baseball
Make
cap?
him cool.
Actually,
It makes him cool. You get the
if-
character.
Yeah, if you're saying, put this hat on them, or they're wearing very high heels, or
Yeah,
instantly
Yeah.
it changes
completely agree.
your performance.
I think
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
I'm not sure it works for everybody, but that sort of direction really, really
It's good
works
for
for
you.
me.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
So
That's
thanks,
really-
Dave.
Yeah, super useful. I'll get him in next
He's
time.
like, yeah,
Alan, get your
I'll
coat.
get me coat. I'll get me cap.
You direct a lot of kids, don't you?
Kids are really, really challenging. I was going to say hard. They're challenging because with an adult,
Yes.
and I always remember this, a producer who I worked with years ago, sort of thing, when you're doing a performance, if an adult under-delivers or whatever, you just say to them, do it better.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what you're
yeah.
doing, just do it better. But when it's a child, you have to really coach them sort of through, and that is really, really tricky. I tend to only work with children from theatrical schools.
Yeah.
So they're aware of the process and everything. But the times I have worked with non-theatrical school kids, it's a real challenge.
I think it must be hard to get their energy up sometimes.
Or get it down sometimes.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
And also to get the biggest challenge is to keep them focused.
Yeah.
Because their minds just
Yeah.
drift and
Yeah.
off they go, sort of,
But
and
Alan,
then
I've
they'll-
seen you in action actually, because you did some work with my kids when they were little, and you needed them to giggle, and that's quite hard to get
It's the
kids to giggle,
hardest
whether
thing.
they've trained or not, to
Yeah.
get them to sound natural. You were utterly brilliant at coaxing that out of them.
Oh, well, that's good.
So you're not as bad as you think you
No,
are.
no.
Brilliant. All right.
He isn't brilliant. I'm teasing him. He's absolutely brilliant.
People find it very easy to giggle with me. It's taking me seriously is the problem.
Yeah, he couldn't get the
Focusing.
serious side
Yes,
at all.
focusing.
Agreed. So, actually, talking of kids, do your kids watch your TV, like any of the animations you do, and recognise you?
I do put them on for them, Steph.
Do they go, "Oh, Mum, that's you," or do they
Well,
not have a clue?
Quite often they'll go, "Oh, Mummy, it's you," and I'll go, "No, that's actually my friend who sounds very much like you and does a lot more sea movies than I do."
Oh, really?
Yeah, quite often they'll say, "Oh, Mum, that's you," because a lot of us sound very similar.
Yeah.
But my youngest, who's 4, he watches
All the programmes
all
that
the
you've been.
CBBS.
That must be so fun.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are interested in, a lot of actors want to do animation, even though the money's not in animation in the way that it is in commercials. It's because they want their families to be able to watch those shows and sort of see the characters. Would you say that that's true?
Well,
from what
also,
you've...
if I put on something that I'm in, it feels like they're not watching telly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of
Guilt-free.
like
like
I
it.
am playing with them directly.
And this is why Mum wasn't here for 4 hours the other day looking after you. She was doing this for you.
exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant. Nice way of
Yes,
dealing
yes,
with
very
that.
useful.
Yeah. So changing it slightly, I've got a question that I would like to know. Who would you most like to share a booth with, Harriet, if you were to do
Alan?
a voice? Oh, you'd like to share it with Alan?
We're often in
We've
the
done
booth.
it. Yeah.
Are they never side by side?
Never side by side.
I've never
Always
heard you perform.
Well,
There's
you
a
don't
reason
want-
for that,
Harriet. There's a reason why
please
I'm
don't
the
give-
other side of the booth.
Don't give him that opportunity, Harriet. Who would you like to share a booth with? Or is there no one?
No. I mean, I'm lucky in that I have shared a booth with some very funny and amazing people. So probably all of them again.
Without upsetting anyone. But like, who would be your dream?
But a dream person, you know Pamela Adlon, don't you?
Oh my God.
From Better
She's
Things.
my hero.
I don't know. Do you know Pamela
No,
Adlon?
no.
Okay, so she was a very famous voice artist
Yes, she is.
from America. And then she did this series, and an actress. She's a famous actress, but she did a series called Better Things.
Right.
It's brilliant.
It's amazing. I mean, for people of a certain age,
I love her.
anyone who has kids and anyone who works in the voiceover industry must watch that show because it's so funny. But also, she is so her natural voice is this, isn't it? But she is an incredible voice artist, and she's so funny.
Yes.
So I just love to meet her.
And I've heard very good things about her as a person, which is lovely.
She's a very generous filmmaker, and she has a lot of women on her set.
Yeah.
She brings a lot of her friends who have only done voiceover work to film with them.
Real supportive woman.
She's a very supportive,
Yeah. No, fair
funny,
enough.
brilliant lady. So, and she comes to London a lot.
Right.
Does she?
So yes, so can somebody
Check us out. Hit us up. Alan, is there anybody, obviously, that you wouldn't necessarily want to share a booth with, but would you particularly like to get into the booth to direct, or is there anyone that you've ever thought, oh, keep it clean, Alan? Oh, not your crush.
You've had a lot of famous people in your booth.
Yeah, it's a hard one because it's do you know who I would really like to have is Stephen Fry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What? Why? It's
Just but it's not what goes on in the booth. I just love to chat to him.
Oh,
outside
okay.
the booth.
So really, you just want to go for a drink with
Yeah,
him?
I just want to go for a drink with
Yeah.
him. He fascinates me.
Yeah.
He absolutely fascinates me. And I just think he's such a lovely man.
Is he?
Well, I think he is. Yeah.
yeah.
And I hope that would be
Yes.
sort of, I wouldn't have my sort of image of him sort
Yeah.
of
No, I
quashed
don't
in
think
any
you
way.
would.
No. He just seems like a really genuine, caring and interesting
Yeah.
person.
Oh, I think he's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
intelligent, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's really nice.
It's hard to think of.
Okay, so we're kind of coming towards the end of my questions, but it's Friday night, it's 5:00, and you've finished your voiceover session. What are you going to do in Soho? Harriet, I aim that at you.
I'm just gonna go home. I've got 4 kids.
Do you know what? I said exactly the same. I would
so
go
sad,
home.
isn't
You
it?
two are rock and roll.
I know.
At 5 p.m. I'd be like, oh my
Soho.
god,
Shit, what am I doing this late in Soho?
5 p.m. I've got tea to make.
Oh.
I've got kids to put to bed. I've got
Surely you have staff.
Hey, I'll just text say I'm going to be late. In the old days, though, before kids, there was a time when the studios, if it was a Friday,
Yeah.
they would make
Open up.
cocktails.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, and
Take
that was.
note.
that
Take
was-
note to all sound
did,
studios out there.
Yeah, well, that was
Those
good
were the
fun.
good days.
Those were the good days.
Yeah, but now it's just going home.
Just go home. But I'll show my age. I would have gone to the WAG Club.
The WAG Club.
Yeah. The
what-
WAG,
The WAG.
the WAG Club.
God, Alan.
It was the club to be
Oh,
at.
okay, I
Okay,
know.
but
I just
I mean, I've
misheard.
worked in Soho a long time. I don't know. Where's
Yeah.
the WAG
What is
Club?
that?
Well, it was it was Wardour Street. Was it Wardour Street or Dean Street? I always used to get confused.
Yeah.
And I had to sort of learn the order in which they went, because I thought if I'm going to go because you go to Bar Italia,
Yep.
then you'd go to the WAG Club,
Yeah.
and then you come out the WAG Club and you'd go to the Lido in Gerard's. Is it Chinatown? What's it called? Gerard.
Oh, Gerard's Street. One
Yeah,
of them.
that was the order in which you did things.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. But it was the club.
What was the WAG club like? What is that? Was it a private club or was it?
Yeah, it was a private club, and
Really?
it was just loads of sort of the hippest, coolest people. And my friend Julian, there was always a massive queue. And my friend Julian just used to be able to walk up, and there's a guy on the door called Winston, and he used to walk up and he'd go, "Hi, Winston," and
And off
Winston
you
would
went.
just let him in.
Oh.
And I went one night without Julian. And I walked up and I went, "Hi, Winston," and I went to walk in, and he went, "Get to the back." And I had no clout at all, sort of thing. But when you got in there, it was like.
Did you not
the
walk
place
around
to
with your
be.
BAFTA and just be like, "Hi"?
This was pre-BAFTA, unfortunately.
Oh, shame.
I love
Yeah.
hearing stories about old Soho, probably only
Old
20 years
Soho,
ago,
yeah.
but you know, it's changed so much,
know.
hasn't it? I feel like maybe it's just my age, but I'm not sure that many people aren't going home at 5 p.m. anymore.
Probably. I don't know. It used to be, obviously, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was that much younger and I was going out all
And
the
working
time.
in
And so,
advertising.
exactly.
Where are they now, though? They're going to, are they Shoreditch?
Soho House.
Yeah.
They're
I think
Shoreditch.
Soho House is super
Oh,
popular.
that's the-
And then
yeah.
you've got Century and you've got Blacks and you've still got the private clubs around
Yeah,
here that
yeah,
I think
yeah,
are
yeah.
quite popular.
Occasionally we go out for a cup of tea.
Green tea.
What are you talking
Great.
about? We're always
Also,
raving.
Steph, if I've done a 5 p.m, I will not have a drink in the evening because I'll have a terribly important voiceover the next day. So-
Not on a Friday, darling.
Not
Not
on
on
a
a Friday. You're fine. Okay, so finally, my final question. I'd like to ask both of you: what advice would you give to an actor going into a booth for the first time?
Oh, I mean, it sounds really sort of naff and cliched and everything, but I would say relax and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, because you're obviously there for a reason, that
Yeah.
someone's liked your voice, they've
Yeah.
liked your reel, and so on. And just try and enjoy it.
Yeah. That's easier said than done,
Yeah, it
because
is.
actually when you've got the microphone, and I've been asked to jump in occasionally for the odd thing, and they're like, "Oh, can you just go in? I just need a couple of words." Honestly, the minute, because I'm not a trained actress, the minute
No.
I'm sat there with the headphones on and the microphone, especially when I was younger, now I guess as you get older you get a bit more like, I don't care, but now then I'll be like, and it comes through in the voice. It's
Yeah.
shaky, it's claggy,
Yes.
your mouth goes
Yeah.
dry. It's really hard to
And
relax.
also,
To relax,
as
yeah.
an actor, you especially when you're starting out, you know that they've chosen your voice because they've heard your
Yeah.
you go, but obviously they're expecting, and I'm going to do this thing, and they're going to be like, "Oh, but I thought that was the voice we chose,"
Yeah.
and you're going, "I can't perform like I did on my reel."
Well, that's why it's so important that what you do on your reel
Yes,
is
authentic.
work. It's authentic, but you can definitely deliver that again. Because I've had that a few times where people have done these incredible voiceovers, and that
Yeah.
is the reference for when they go back in.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
"Oh God, I don't know if I can do
It's
that."
the
again."
same as doing a million accents and being able to,
Yeah.
everybody's so talented when they're not in front of a mic.
Yes.
or with a camera pointing at them.
Yeah.
Because your brain, when you're playing, can do anything, can't it? And
Yeah.
you can do any accent because there's no pressure. But suddenly, when the pressure's on and you've got to perform on the spot, that's when you've got to relax. But it's so hard.
So do you still get nervous then?
I do, yeah,
Do
especially
you?
for new
That's
clients.
interesting.
Yeah, I know, and for new, especially.
Maybe it's because I sort of spend such a lot of time in there. I just
Yes.
sort of think,
Yeah.
well, it's no big deal, which is probably not the best way to be.
What, when you go into a booth?
Oh no, when I'm sort of directing or I'm in the
Yeah.
in the studio.
You're like, don't worry, love, it's not that important.
It's not that important. It's only my job.
I think that you get used to it for, like, obviously when you've been working in the industry for a long time as a producer, you forget how nerve-wracking it is
Yes.
for artists. And I,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
producer, used to try
Yeah.
and give them a few minutes to just warm up, get chatting to the
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
producers if they could. Not everyone will give you that time or that luxury. You might just be reading the script. But I did think as a producer, it was kind of my role to try and make sure that that person wasn't feeling stressed, or if they were running late, or wasn't feeling anxious, or
Yeah.
there's 10 people in a room all talking about you but not to you.
Yeah.
It's really important from the producer's point of view. This is what I used to think,
Yeah.
was to try and put that voiceover artist at ease, because actually, yes, you're paying them money to be in there and that's their profession,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it is intimidating every time when you're walking into
Especially
a room full
when
of people.
you're doing a big ad and there's 10 clients in there, or
Yeah.
you don't actually know who everybody is quite a lot of the time.
They
'cause they'll
don't
go,
introduce
this is
themselves.
so and so and so and so, and you're like, but I don't know who they are.
I suppose it's
quite
because
intimidating.
what I do is it's often sort of, it'll be over a long period of time, and you get to know the
them.
people and
absolutely.
everything.
Yes.
The first time they come, especially with the kids, I'm really. I mean,
Yes.
we're starting a new series at the moment, and we've got some new kids, and it will be their first time in the studio. And I have worked out in my head an average number of lines that they will do.
Yeah.
And I know that when we start, they won't hit that number.
Yeah.
And they will gradually build up to that number.
Yeah.
But the important thing is not to knock their confidence at all,
Yeah.
and let them enjoy the process.
Yes.
Because when they're relaxed and happy, they'll deliver.
Yeah.
If they're not, then I've got a problem. So,
Yeah.
Then that's the same for adults. I genuinely think you're treating the kids like that, but I think adults also need to go in and feel relaxed and happy, and therefore you get that performance out of them. Generally, I'm not saying I've had some not successful voiceover sessions, obviously, but generally I think them, and keeping it, I think I may have said this before, but to one voice directing rather than a room full of different people.
There's nothing
That's
worse than
really
committing.
hard.
Yes.
It's really hard
Yeah.
if there is 10 different people
Absolutely.
Oh, God,
coming in and saying their
Yeah.
own different bits.
Yeah.
For an actor, that's very hard to take the direction.
Yeah.
I mean, the first voice job I did, and thank God the production company doesn't exist anymore, but I'd never done a voiceover, but I had an agent, and wasn't Steph then, and they sent me on this job, and it's fine, but I didn't really have any information, and it was for a promo for probably for a kids program. But the voice booth was miles away from the studio.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, if you come in here and you're going to be sitting in here and we'll be down there, but I couldn't see them. So I was in a voice booth on my own. I had never done a voiceover, and literally hardly knew what, luckily I put the headphones on, and then they were talking to me in my head, and the producer was going, okay, have you got enough in your cans? And I was like, I don't know what cans mean.
What does this mean?
What is cans? Genuinely, I didn't know. And I went, because I guess that was the right answer. And then they're like, okay, so you're going to read it to picture. I was like, that means nothing to me. And they put the promo on, and I just read the script like, I didn't understand that I had to read it. God, I was so stupid and so naive.
But the industry is full of that, isn't it? And it's when you ask the questions when you don't understand, and unless you ask them right at the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
I never knew what. I mean, this is a technical, but I never knew what an amphi was, which is something to do with sound and editing.
Right.
And I never knew, and I've busked it all my life,
still don't
and
know.
I still really don't know what an amphi is. And people would say, "Have you delivered the amphi?" Yeah, it went last week. Is the amphi gone? Yeah, it's gone. And unless you ask those questions, you don't know. And everyone's talking in a language.
Oh, yes.
And it's like any profession. It becomes an esoteric sort of language in the end, doesn't it?
And you don't want to be you don't want to say, actually, this is my first
No,
ever voiceover
you
job.
don't. You need to fake it. But
what I should have done is called a more experienced person and said, can you just take me through, or call my agent and said, please, can you just tell me what's going to happen? And everything with hindsight, but
but that's good advice. I think that is really good advice. If you haven't done one before, I think it's really important if the agent, if you're nervous and you don't know.
Yes.
I mean, I think a lot of the people that I represent, I tend to record a reel with, I can give them
can
that
say, "This is
opportunity
Cams."
to exactly and give them. And we try when we do if I do a demo with someone, I try and explain some of if it's a drop in, what that means, or you're going to be recording to picture, what syncing up means, all those phrases that you take for granted because you've been working for a long time. I hadn't even thought that someone wouldn't know what the word cans meant for headphones.
I didn't be the only person ever.
No, not necessarily, but I didn't. It wouldn't occur to me. So
new to me.
it is important that the artist says, "Oh, what does that mean?
Yes.
Or how does this?" Because there are so many terminologies that we don't realise that we're using.
Yeah.
And that if you're going in, and I do say to my artists, don't tell them it's your first time because they're paying you a lot of money to go in there, and you're a professional actor, so you do need to kind of slightly fake it.
Yeah.
But also, you need to talk to me if you need that advice.
And even things like, maybe if you're first time going to the booth, you wouldn't, if there wasn't water there, you must ask for water,
Oh, so important.
Because,
you get really
if you're
dry
too
mouth.
nervous, yes, exactly, really dry mouth. you know, if you hear yourself clicking or whatever, just drink. And then obviously the engineer will tell you, but the sort of basic mic technique is quite good to know before you go in, I think.
How on earth did you get your first voiceover
I know.
job and then not know any of that information? Sorry, Harriet, but that's fascinating.
How did I
How did you get?
never
Had you got real? Had you done anything?
Did you face the front?
I don't know how I got that job.
I seriously do.
But do you know what I did do as well? Because I was like, I don't even know how early I should get there. And I remember phoning, I should have phoned way in advance, but we've got a mutual friend called Jenny, who you've met, and she was working in advertising. And I phoned Jen and I was going, Jen, I'm 45 minutes early. Do you think that's too early? She was like, yeah, I think you should walk around the block a bit.
Around the block.
Hilarious.
Go and have 6 coffees.
Drinking loads of claggy milk in the meantime. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And here we are today.
Thank God.
Thank goodness you did something right then.
Yeah, the company closed down.
So your reputation was safe. Was it because of your voice though?
I think it probably was.
Oh, brilliant.
But at least you learn by failing.
Yeah, just don't do it on my watch. Is that all right?
But now I look back and I can remember how nervous I was for loads of voiceovers. And, you know, now with experience comes confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not easy, is it? But I don't get nervous for sort of
My stuff.
when I'm working with unprofessionals like
But
Allan.
actually, I never get nervous for animation because I know it's always going to be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's the lovely thing. You know that you're going to have a good time with animation. You know, mostly. It's just actually, but I think it's still intimidating if, however experienced you are, if there's a million new faces and there's quite a lot of pressure because if you've only got an hour and they want something completely new and they don't, sometimes they're not completely sure what they want.
Or they're trying to say too much in a very short space of time. There's all sorts of reasons why it can get quite difficult in session, but brilliant. All right, well, listen, on that happy note, I feel let's leave it where you did all right in the end. Phew.
Did all right. Can I just say though, Steph, because I'm very keen to obviously, because a lot of people say, oh, can you help me with this, or can you listen to my reel? Because actually, I'm very happy to help anyone. Not necessarily people listening to this, but I feel like there's so many people who want to get into voiceovers and they pay a lot of money to have a reel done before they've done any research.
Yeah.
So I would say that if you are thinking of getting into voice, please sort of listen to as much as you can, all sort of formats of audio before you get a reel done, because I did it. I went and got my reel done before I'd met any agents, and it was terrible because I had to go, oh, Elizabeth Shaw, chocolate, yum. You know, but I didn't know. I thought, but now, of course, I was like 20 something, and I should have been selling young stuff, and I should have come to Jungle to get it done, or. So there's so much that you can research yourself before you get your reel done, especially a commercial reel or an animation reel, maybe, and just talk to as many people as you can. Yeah. And most people will want to help you because, you know, you don't want people to waste their money, do you? Or...
No, it's difficult because you kind of need a reel to approach agents to say this is what my voice sounds like. Yeah. And then a lot of agents will go, okay, but that's not good enough for the... So it's finding a balance. But because if you also do a really, really simple one on your phone, they can sound so awful that it doesn't do you justice at all. So it's really hard. And you know, there are some people out there who do these show reels for artists, kind of just churning out the money and don't really think about who, like you say, you know, you can have a really deep voice, but is doing some ad for like a really high pitched sort of what should be like IKEA or something, but they should be doing movie trailers. And I've seen that before where I'm just like, oh, that's all wrong. And you've just spent a lot of money on that. And I'm going to now ask you to spend a lot more money to redo your reel. But at least you're going to, because actually, at least you're going to tell them to go to someone that you trust and that you know produces great reels. So that's the difference, isn't it? But it is hard. A lot of people say to me, should I get a professional reel done before I approach an agent? And I think it's hard. I think they do need to do, even if they don't do the full reel, that 2 or 3 reads but professionally recorded is really important, because otherwise you don't get the quality on a phone, and that can just cost you an agent actually listening to you properly. It's a really difficult one. It's like, you know, how are you going to get an acting agent without some kind of show reel or headshot. It can't be just something, it needs to be quite a decent headshot if you're going to do more. It's finding that balance. It's not spending too much, but just enough.
But also you're also paying to have a brilliant engineer who will direct you properly and say, make it sound like you rather than your voiceover voice.
Yes. Don't
This is my
second guess.
voiceover voice.
Because it's not,
I'd like to do more in my voiceover voice.
That's actually quite creepy.
And on that happy note, I'm going to cut you short. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to me today. That was brilliant.
Thank you, Harriet.
And that's it for the show. Hope you liked it, and if you did, please rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. It was presented by me, Steph Thompson, and produced by Mike Hanson for Pod People's Productions, and recorded by Sean Dios. And a special thanks to Jungle Studios in Soho for lending me their studio. See you next time.